Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Dental Assistant Council meeting. My name is Jerry Fowler, and I'm the chair of the Dental Assistant Council. Today is Thursday, February 5th, 2026. The Dental Assistant Council meeting is being held in person with additional public participation through WebEx. For all of those who wish to participate online, please log into the WebEx website provided on the posted agenda for this meeting. Instructions to connect to the meeting are provided on the agenda. During each call for comments from Dental Assistant Council members and speakers, we will ensure that all comments can be accommodated or heard before proceeding with the agenda. This is an official meeting of the Dental Assistant Council. The council welcomes public comments on any item on the agenda, and it is the council's intent to ask for public comments prior to the council taking action on any agenda item. The DCA moderator will explain the process for providing public comment shortly. For individuals participating via WebEx, when called upon, the moderator will give the individual permission to unmute themselves, and they'll have 2 minutes to make public comment. The moderator will audibly announce when 30 seconds remain to conclude the public comment. After 2 minutes have lapsed, the individual will be placed back on mute. Only one public comment per agenda item is allowed per attendee. Depending on the number of people who would like to testify on a particular agenda item, a total time limit may be imposed. We ask all speakers to please stay on topic and not repeat testimony already provided. If you agree with testimony already provided, please just state your name and that you are in support of any comments previously provided. I would now like to ask the DCA moderator to please explain how public comments will be taken during this meeting.
When the time comes for public comment, we're going to display a sign which you should be seeing on your screen right about now. We're going to ask everyone to raise their hand. You can do that by tapping the hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users will need to dial *3 to raise your hand. And as stated before, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 30-second warning before your time expires. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. This meeting is called to order. Board staff, will you please call roll?
Good morning. This is Marilla Turan. I will now call the roll. Epps Robbins.
Epps Robbins, present.
Fowler.
Fowler, present.
Gerlach.
Gerlach, present.
Loren.
Loren, present.
Miyazaki.
Miyazaki, present.
Olagi.
Olagi, present.
Smith.
Smith, present.
A quorum has been established.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. Before we open public comment on matters not on the agenda, I would like to remind everyone that public comment should address the council as a whole and not individual members. Please be aware that public comment during this agenda item should provide information to the council members, but it's not a discussion between the council members and the public. The only action council members can take right now is to listen to comments and decide whether they want a future agenda item on the topic. Though this may seem at times like the council members are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensure the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the council's mission. In the interest of time, as we've done in the past, we would like to request that public comments not repeat statements prior to a prior commenter. If you're in support of a statement made by a prior individual, and your comments have already been made, please just state your name or association and your support for the previous commenter. Legislative hearings regularly use this practice as a good way to ensure that we can hear from everyone today. Are there any in-person public comments? Not seeing any. Are there any public comments for individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
All right, WebEx, now is the time to raise your hand for agenda item 2. If you'd like to make a comment, please tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. We'll now move on to agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action on the November 6, 2025 meeting minutes. Is there any council member discussion? No, not seeing any. Is there a motion and a second?
All motion. To accept the past.
Let me just add one thing. Can we add, on the prior meeting minutes, there was public comment. It was agenda item number 2. Can we add that as a possible, it's the retirement category option for licensed dental assistants? Can we add that for a future agenda item? Is that possible?
We're going to do that
At the very end.
Like you're the chair. You can do that offline.
Okay,
But right now it's public comment.
Okay.
We want to add stuff to a future agenda.
okay. Okay, so Ms. Smith, you motioned
Accept the minutes of the past meeting.
as they are.
Yeah.
A second.
I second. Gerlach.
And Gerlach seconds. Okay. State the motion to accept the meetings as they are. And is there any in-person public comments? All right. Not seeing it. Is there any comments? Or DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
All right, WebEx, we have a motion on agenda item 3, the meeting minutes. If you'd like to make a comment on the motion or the agenda item 3, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment longer to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. Thank you. Board staff, will you please call the votes for this agenda item?
This is Marilla Turan. I will now call the roll. Epps Robbins,
Epps Robbins, aye.
Fowler,
Fowler, aye.
Gerlach,
Gerlach, aye.
Loren,
Lorraine, aye.
Miyazaki,
Miyazaki, aye.
Olagi, Smith.
Smith, aye.
The motion passed.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item 4, Council Chair Report. Well, first, I'd like to welcome our new executive officer, Mr. Bryce Doherty. We're excited and looking forward to working with you while we represent and advocate for our wonderful, beloved dental assisting profession. It is our hope to make 2026 the year of remarkable positive changes that benefit dental assistants and dentistry and the dentistry profession as a whole. It takes a village to accomplish great things, and that is why I'm so proud to work with the amazing and talented Dental Assisting Council members, Mr. Bryce Doherty, Executive Officer, and the incredible board staff, the experienced dental board members, the legal counsel, as well as the knowledgeable stakeholders. As a recap, at the November 6, 2025 Dental Assisting Council meeting, the formation of 2 working group committees was announced to review the statutes and regulations related to duties of the dental assisting profession. Council members Rosalinda Olagi and Jessica Gerlach were assigned to the DA and the RDA working group. Carrie Smith and Jerry Fowler were assigned to the RDA-EF working group. Board staff chose to work with the DA and RDA working group first. They have met several times and are presenting their report today for discussion with the Dental Assisting Council. And board staff will soon be working with the RDA-EF working group with the goal to present that report at the May board meeting. That concludes my Dental Assisting Council, or my chair report. Is there any public or any council member discussion on this? No? Is there any in-person comments? Not seeing any. Are there any public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
All right, we're once again open for public comment via WebEx. Now is the time to tap that hand at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. We'd like to move on now to Agenda Item 5, Executive Officer Report. I'm going to ask Bryce Dougherty, Executive Officer, to present this agenda item.
Good morning, Madam Chair. First, I would like to congratulate Ms. Olagi and Dr. Loren for their recent reappointment to the Dental Board of California. Second, congratulations are also in order to Ms. Olagi and Dr. Loren for their election to the Board Executive Committee as Board Vice President Ms. Olagi and Board President Dr. Loren, respectively. I very much look forward to a productive year and would like to thank them both again for giving me this august opportunity to serve you and the dental consumers of California as the Executive Director of the Board. In my capacity as Executive Officer of the Board, I've attended some additional noteworthy meetings and engagements since our last meeting. On December 6th, I met with my counterpart at the Dental Hygiene Board of California, Anthony Lum, at the Dental Board headquarters on Evergreen. We discussed our ongoing strategic alliance and tradition of attending each other's board meetings. On December 9th, I, along with Dr. Chan, attended the DCA quarterly board leadership meeting at DCA headquarters, hosted by former and now retired DCA Director Kimberly Kirkmeyer. This meeting included all DCA boards and bureaus. I updated attendees on board operations and strategic objectives for 2026. On December 17th, Dr. Chan and I attended the DCA Health Board Controlled Substance Joint Forum, hosted by the California State Board of Pharmacy at Sacramento State University. This joint forum on controlled substances and medications for opioid use disorder and access, aptly titled Prescriptions in Patients Addressing Challenges and Finding Opportunities, not only included the Dental Board of California and the California State Board of Pharmacy, but also the Medical Board of California, Osteopathic Medical Board of California, Physician Assistant Board of California, and the California Board of Registered Nursing. I'd like to give a special thank you to board staff Jody Ortiz, Kelly Garcia, and April Sison, who assisted in making sure the event ran smoothly. Attendance was limited and based on a first-come, first-served basis. The board had a strong showing of licensees participating in person and virtually. On December 19th and January 8th, I attended DCA Executive Officer onboarding workshops in person at DCA headquarters. As most of you know, my background is in legislative advocacy in and around the state capitol. Therefore, I've been spending a considerable amount of time assessing the status of board positions and priorities on several legislative matters, many of which affect registered dental assistants, and those in extended function. I've also been reintroducing myself to members of the California legislature and legislative staff in my new capacity as executive officer of the board. I've been receiving a very warm welcome, many congratulations, and words of encouragement. Specifically, I've met several times with Assembly and Senate Business and Professions Committee staff on pending legislation and proposed legislation, some of which we'll be discussing later today and tomorrow with the board. Specifically, I've been working with Assemblymember Joaquin Arambula, Fresno, on authoring this year a standalone board-sponsored cleanup legislation bill, some of which those changes apply to statutory cleanup related to RDAs and those in extended function. I've worked directly with Assemblymember Arambula and his staff over the years on several legislative efforts. As some of you may know, Assemblymember Arambula is a former emergency physician from Fresno and currently one of only 3 physicians in the state legislature. Furthermore, there's been extensive work done on the proposal today under Agenda Item 9 to propose updating and retooling the DA and RDA duties and functions. In fact, the second internal markup session on that draft legislative proposal was on November 26th, only my second day on the job. I'd like to thank Ms. Olagi and Ms. Gerlach on their tireless efforts and contributions to this proposal. I'd also like to thank the effort, input, and insights of the Alliance in getting this draft proposal to the starting gate. Lastly, I'd like to recognize the extraordinary work of the board staff management team on guiding this effort, including Board Assistant Executive Director Christy Bell, and especially Board Chief of License and Program Compliance and Dental Assisting Tina Valerie, as well as Board Counsel Tara Welch. Also noteworthy is the California Senate has recently sworn in a new pro tem, Senator Monique Limon from Santa Barbara, the first Latina to hold that position. As such, there have been several changes to the Senate leadership team and committees. For example, she has appointed a new chair of the Senate Business and Professions and Economic Development Committee. Senator Aisha Wahab from Silicon Valley is the new chair of that committee. Thank you, Madam Chair, and notwithstanding any questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Is there any council member discussion? No? Okay, not seeing any. Is there any in-person public comments? Okay. Are there any public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
We are now taking public comment on Agenda Item 5. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. We'll now move on to Agenda Item 6, Update on Dental Assisting Examination Statistics. I'm going to ask Tina Valerie, Chief of License and Program Compliance and Dental Assisting, to present this agenda item.
Good morning. Good morning. Hopefully that you can hear me. I'm going to present Agenda Item 6, which begins on page 15 of your meeting materials and provides the examination statistics for the registered dental assistant, registered dental assistant combined written and law and ethics exam, the registered dental assistant and extended functions written exam, the orthodontic assistant written exam, and the dental sedation assistant written exam for fiscal year 2025-2026 through December, along with the prior 3 fiscal years. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about this agenda item.
Is there any council member discussion? Are there any in-person public comments? Are there any public comments from members who'd like to participate via WebEx? DCA moderator, will you please facilitate?
WebEx, now is the time to raise a hand on Agenda Item 6. If you'd like to make a comment, please do so by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue?
Yes, please. We'll now move on to Agenda Item 7, Update on Dental Assisting Licensing Statistics. I'm going to ask Ms. Fowler to present this agenda item.
Thank you. Agenda Item 7 begins on page 20 and goes through page 31 of your meeting materials. And this memo provides an overview of the licensing statistics for the dental assisting unit. The tables and charts within this memo indicate the number of applications received, approved, abandoned, and denied, as well as the number of licenses issued by month and the number of active, inactive, delinquent, and canceled licenses. You will also find information about the number of current and active RDAs by county and population. The statistics provided are for fiscal years 2025, 2026 through December, along with the prior 3 fiscal years. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any council member discussion? Not seeing any. Is there any in-person public comments? Are there any public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
WebEx is taking public comment on agenda item 7. If you'd like to make a comment, please tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. We'll now move on to agenda item 8, update and discussion on registered dental assistant and registered dental assistant and extended functions, educational programs and courses, application approvals, and reevaluations. Going to ask Ms. Valerie to present this again.
Thank you. Agenda item 8 begins on page 32 of your meeting materials and provides an overview of the dental assisting educational courses and programs that have been approved and denied, along with those that are deficient and pending. You will also find information on the number of site visits conducted, all of which are for fiscal year 2025, 2026 through December and the prior 3 fiscal years. On pages 34 through 36, you will find a list of programs and courses approved by name and type for the same fiscal year, 2025, 2026 through December, and the total number of approved dental assisting educational programs and courses by type that are in active status. Beginning on page 37 of your meeting materials, we have provided information regarding the reevaluations we have conducted in fiscal year 2025, 2026 through December. And the reevaluations we have conducted have been initiated based on 2 scenarios. Either they were a standard evaluation based on the board's mandate to conduct reevaluations every 7 years, or they were initiated based on information the board received indicating potential noncompliance. The table displays the reevaluation results by reevaluation type and the type of program or course. As reported previously, board staff continue to see a high number of reevaluations that have resulted in withdrawal of approval. This is due to a variety of reasons, including program and course providers not responding to reevaluation notices, insufficient clinical instruction hours, incorrect sequence of instruction, incomplete and insufficient evaluation forms, and insufficient student records. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there any council member discussion? No? Are there in-person public comments? Are there any public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
All right, WebEx, we are taking public comment on agenda item 8. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. We'll now move on to agenda item 9, update, discussion, and possible recommendation to the board on legislative proposal to amend Business and Professions Code sections 1684.5, 1741, 1750, 1750.1, and 1752.4 regarding dental auxiliaries, dental assistant, and registered dental assistant duties working group. I'm going to ask the dental assistant and registered dental assistant duties working group to present this agenda item.
Hi, Gerlach. This agenda item provides details about the working group meetings, looking at some changes to the laws about dental assistant and registered dental assistant scope of practice listed in the table of permitted duties. Board staff recognized inconsistencies between existing statutes and regulations governing allowable dental assistant and registered dental assistant duties. In response, the council chair formed a two-member working group on November 6, 2025. Council members Rosalinda Olagi and myself, Jessica Gerlach, to review and recommend statutory clarifications related to the DA and RDA definitions, duties, and supervision requirements. The working group met with board staff and board council on November 19th and 26th and December 3rd and 10th, 2025, to clarify statutory language, line up supervision requirements, and assess consolidating regulatory duty language into statute. Stakeholders were asked to provide feedback on the proposal. On December 16th, 2025, the working group, together with the board staff, board council, and stakeholders, reviewed a new draft that included all feedback. This resulted in a legislative proposal that all parties were in agreement with. The working group met again on December 17, 2025 to finalize the legislative proposal and discuss what the next steps would be. The working group believes the proposed statutory updates make the rules more consistent and clearer, while prioritizing patient safety and the proper use of dental assistance. Written feedback from the CDA indicates support and alignment with the working group's interpretation of the supervision and related language. With council approval, the recommendation would be to advance to the board for review.
Thank you for introducing this item for us and for working with us on this project. I will be providing an overview of some of the more specific amendments proposed to these sections, and we'll begin on page 48 of the meeting materials with Business and Professions Code section 1684.5. In this section, the occurrences of the term supervising dentist would be updated to supervising licensed dentist to conform with the newly defined term proposed to be added in Business and Professions Code section 1741. Moving into Business and Professions Code 1741 on page 49, the proposal adds terms and definitions from existing regulations into this section, along with the addition of newly defined terms for registered dental hygienist in alternative practice and supervising licensed dentist. It also adds clarifying language to some of the definitions in subdivisions L and M on pages 50 and 51 for direct and general supervision. There were also minor changes made to these definitions to align with the Dental Hygiene Board's definitions of these terms under Business and Professions Code 1902. Additional changes in this section were to subdivision E on page 49 to add additional requirements to the certificate of completion issued by dental assisting educational programs and courses, and to subdivision F to eliminate the restriction limiting a license to no more than 8 units of continuing education per day. Moving into Business and Professions Code 1750, subdivisions F3 and 4 on page 53. These would be removed from this section and added to Business and Professions Code 1750.1, subdivision E, to consolidate all allowable duties into one location. Before we move on to the next section, I'd like to first highlight that while the proposal suggests a lot of revisions were made to the next two sections, there were actually very few. However, a couple of them had a big impact, which I'd like to go over in more detail. The first of which affects both Business and Professions Code sections 1750.1 and 1752.4. And these two sections were reordered to list the allowable duties from the highest level of supervision to the lowest. The next was the creation of a chairside supervision section to consolidate all allowable duties requiring the presence of the supervising licensed dentist at the patient's chairside while the duty is being performed. Specifically, moving into Business and Professions Code 1750.1, Subdivision A on page 54. This proposal adds language from Regulation Section 1085 and current Subdivision D into this section so that all prohibited duties are in one location. Subdivision C12 on page 55 adds clarifying language to mirror the requirement and regulation in relation to the removal of periodontal dressings. Lastly, we'll move into Business and Professions Code 1752.4. Subdivision B1 on page 58 clarifies the dental assisting duties that registered dental assistants are allowed to perform under direct supervision based on the changes made to new Business and Professions Code section 1750.1 subdivision E or C, I apologize. Subdivision C1 on page 58 clarifies the dental assisting duties that registered dental assistants are allowed to perform under general supervision based on the changes made to new Business and Professions Code section 1750.1 subdivision D. Subdivision E on page 59 adds clarifying language to reflect the board's current process and assigns supervision levels to the performance of these duties. And subdivision F on page 60 adds clarifying language to reflect the board's current process. To wrap up this presentation, I just wanted to say thank you to all that contributed to this proposal. It was a collaborative effort from everybody, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. And I agree, that was a lot of work. Well, much needed work. Is there any council member discussion?
I just wanted to thank the committee also for their hard work and cleaning this up. It looks like it'll be a lot more streamlined and easier to read, I think.
Miyazaki, I just want to thank everybody for all their hard work too as well. And it's an excellent product that turned out. Is this time for discussion about specifics about the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I have just a couple of questions to clarify on my mind. The first one I'm looking at is page 41. And it's the second bullet, and it talks about the certificate of completion. I'm sorry, the fourth bullet down talks about the certificate of completion. And I noticed that in the next agenda item 10A, it does talk about at the end of 10A for the certificate for the course, the CE course providers, that they have to mention the authority of which the course has been approved. And I'm wondering, since there's different pathways, would it be a good idea or not to mention which pathway on the certificate that the student graduated from or not? I just wanted to throw that out there.
So just to be clear, the proposal in 10 is separate, obviously, from this proposal. So I'm not sure, looking at the proposal in 9, did you see a concern with what we have in 9? And I think that we can maybe explain how these are going to progress if that helps. The legislative proposal in 10 is intended as the cleanup bill that Mr. Doherty had mentioned during his report. And so that bill is going to be handled separately from this proposal. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question.
I guess I was just asking for maybe in a matter of consistency, if we're asking for certificate of completions with all the information, but one is saying not that to state the pathway that the student went, the pathway that the student went through, and then the other one doesn't have that on there. I guess we could talk about this further later. It might be like minutia. I just wanted to throw that out there about consistency.
And maybe could you tell me the page or where you see that?
So page 88 under G. And I'm not that great with the language too as well, but it says under G, it says at the last sentence, it's underlined, the certificate of completion shall state the statutory authority under paragraph 1, 2, or 3, as subdivision B for which the course has been approved. And so if because the certificate looks like it's going to be very, very similar, but this certificate on page 41 doesn't have sort of like that wording about which pathway that so I'm just saying that maybe would it be a good idea or not? I mean, I'm just saying to throw that out there for consistency to have whether they went through like the apprenticeship pathway, the alternative pathway. But that's something that the subcommittee can also decide to as well, the ad hoc committee, right?
Just to try to provide some clarity, I'm pretty sure, and I'd have to spend a few minutes looking at all this, but I'm pretty sure the referral that G that you're referencing has to do with the infection control course, the virtual. And because that course is being proposed to only be accepted, not for licensure, that's why that provision was added to that particular course requirement. So I don't necessarily want to apply that to all of the other courses because it wouldn't be necessary. And we already have a lot of requirements for the certificate of completion. So, I mean, we can definitely talk about it, but that was put in there for that reason specifically.
I see. So after you explained it, I can understand that. So you can just nix my comment on that. Thank you so much for explaining that. Should I keep going?
Yeah.
Page 43, under the fourth bullet. It talks about chair site supervision, and I was just again wondering whether it was a good idea or not to have a definition of what chair site supervision actually is, just because I'm thinking that in some dental offices have closed rooms, and some dental offices have open bays where there may be 4 pediatric chairs in a row. Does this chair site supervision mean that the dentist, if he's 3 chairs over, is he still supervising that assistant in the chair number 1 when he's in chair number 3 if it's open bay and there's no windows or doors in between? Again, just wondering if there should be a definition for that.
I think we discussed that as part of the working group, but we felt that each of those particular items have been longstanding items. We just moved them into a section, and each one describes the role of the dentist. So we felt it was sufficient with what it had in it. But I think, obviously we could take suggestions on that.
Yeah, so in the work, sorry. It's okay. Sorry. The thought there was in those definitions, and I'll jump in if you want, but the dentist has to be chair side in what is stating in there. They couldn't be in chair 2 in the bay and be performing that. So I think that just like, Tina, that's how I'm interpreting what we said in that piece of it. There was no way for the dentist to be physically in chair 2 when this is happening in chair 3, if you're in a bay. Do you disagree or see one of those as where that procedure would happen by a dental assistant?
So just to, or what you're saying is that if they have to be if the assistant needs chair side supervision in chair 1, then the dentist has to be in chair 1. And I'll just.
I just wanted to make a comment too. I believe we were going to discuss some type of description or definition, stating that it would be at the patient's chair side, the specific patient's chair side.
Ms. Smith?
And isn't there only, if I read this right, one duty that falls under, and that is for the DA or RDA, I don't remember which one, to adjust the level of nitrous oxide? Because how feasible is it for a dental assistant to be doing anything with the dentist at the chair side that's under these?
So if you look at page 54 of your meeting materials, Section B, which is what this is referring to, has 3 duties that are listed for chair side. And as I mentioned, these were just moved into this section to, again, order them in the highest level of supervision to the lowest. So these are existing chair side responsibilities. We just kind of moved it into a chair side level supervision because that's the highest level of supervision. But there's only 3 duties listed there that require the chair side supervision. So I believe, and I think the working group also supported, and the stakeholders that we worked with, that the 3 duties listed, it was very clear what that meant and what it entailed. And so maybe reading those specific duties might help. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Epps Robbins. I just wanted to kind of reiterate what you're saying. So basically you're saying that it's already there. It's just moved. So if someone's looking for that particular information, you can find it in another location. And it should basically sum up all of the questionnaires, right? Or the questions for the standard. Is that what you're saying? So you're basically saying it's somewhere there. But we want it more specific, Kara, is that what you're saying? That you want to show it more specifically for that one duty? Or you think that it should be listed each time that something's mentioned to clarify chair side?
I was just trying to ask if the Dental Assisting Council thought that there was a need for a definition for chair side supervision. And it seems like when I read it on page, now that Tina pointed out at the patient's chair side, that actually does clarify that it should be like at that one chair. If that's, I mean, that seems to make sense to me when it's used in that sentence.
Ms. Wells, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to point out that verbiage in the statutory proposal, but also that mirrors what's in the regulation itself, which is CCR section 1085. Subsection C, paragraph 6. So my point here is that if there's no misunderstanding about what it means for a dentist to be present at the patient's chair side for these particular duties, then I don't think we need a definition of chair side because otherwise there would be a problem today. Okay, thank you.
Is there any, okay,
Yeah, and just for clarification, so there's 1, 2, and 3. I understand, of course, the adjusting of nitrous oxide, the adjusting of oxygen, the assistant sitting on one side while the doctor's doing that. But for clarification on line number 1, a dentist tries in a patient's appliance and then he has to sit at the chair side while the assistant tells the patient how to clean it, when to wear it. I mean, that seems really unrealistic in a dental office. If the dentist has to stay at the chair side while the assistant just delivers the instructions of how to care for it, how to clean it, when to wear it, when not to wear it. That seems really silly to be in this category and very unrealistic. No dentist is going to sit there and wait for an assistant to do those small things.
I think what I'll add to this is that, again, this is existing language. And because there was mention of the dentist being directly involved in the care with the patient in this particular procedure, that's why it was placed into this section. Obviously, the only other 2 sections is direct supervision and general supervision, which do not require the dentist to be with the patient. And so we just felt this was the appropriate place to put it since there's direct involvement with the dentist.
And then, Ms., correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we both asked for stakeholder feedback specifically for this one because we felt like, let's see what stakeholders say before we move forward, and stakeholders were in agreement with this. Okay.
okay, any other, Dr. Lauren?
Yes, I agree completely with
the council member, Smith, that the dentist does not need to be there during the instructions. Can that be removed still?
Be changed to strike through if we decide.
Yes.
This is cool.
Okay, so this is the working group's legislative proposal is presenting to the council. The council can make changes to the legislative proposal. And with those changes, it can then vote to recommend the legislative proposal as revised today. You can send that to the board for submission to the legislature. So that's the process. If you want to make changes, now is the time.
Yeah, I would recommend removing that.
Okay,
That's-
so the recommendation is to, on page 54 of the meeting materials,
Page 54, B, what is it? Where it says number 1B1, and after adjustment by the supervising licensed dentist, examine and seat removable orthodontic appliances. That's right there. It just finishes right there. And then, and deliver care instructions to the patient to be removed.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? So again, this is an allowable duty for, for a dental assistant. And so you're saying to strike that allowable duty or move it to a different section?
The dentist does not have to be chair side to do that. I don't know where we can put it, but maybe you can tell us better. Where can we put that? Remove this and put it somewhere else.
I would think it would be direct, not the chair side.
if you'll take a look at page 55. Existing paragraph 12 is proposed to be stricken. And it says after adjustment by the dentist, examine and seat removable orthodontic appliances and deliver care instructions to the patient. That's exactly the duty that we're talking about for chair side supervision on page 54. If you strike it from B1, you could just unstrike it from paragraph 12, and it would continue to be a direct supervision duty.
Gerlach, I agree to that.
Right. Any more council comments before we go into a motion? No? Do I have someone that'd like to make a motion?
Okay, so, can you hear me? I would like to, Epps Robbins, I would like to motion that we strike, on page 55, item number 12, the sentence that states after adjustment by the dentist, examine and seat removable orthodontic appliances and deliver care instructions to the patient, have that strike removed and replaced back into the verbiage here. Is there a second?
Yeah, can we, you can actually do the whole motion that
And
is
include B1,
indicated on
page 54,
page 63.
and also include page 63, B1.
54.
Oh, page 54. Sorry.
No, I'm looking at
Looking at 6.
the motion on page 47. Option 2 is for to recommend to the board the legislative proposal in attachment 1 as revised during this meeting to
47.
strike on page 54 from Business and Professions Code Section 1750.1 subdivision B, paragraph 1, strike that duty and unstrike it from subdivision C, paragraph 12. That's it. That's the revision. And move that for submission to the California State Legislature to amend Business and Professions Code Sections 1684.5, 1741, 1750, 1750.1, and 1752.4 regarding dental auxiliaries. Councilmember Epps Robbins, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I would.
Miyazaki second.
Okay. So Epps Robbins motions, Miyazaki second. Is there any in-person public comment on this agenda item? No? Is there any public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
WebEx, we have a motion on the floor for agenda item 9. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. Board staff, will you please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item?
This is Marilla Tran. I will now call the roll. Epps Robbins,
Epps Robbins, aye.
Fowler,
Fowler, aye.
Gerlach,
Gerlach, aye.
Loren,
Lorraine, aye.
Miyazaki,
Miyazaki, aye.
Olagi,
Olagi, aye.
Smith.
Smith, aye.
The motion passed.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item 10A, legislative proposal to amend BPC sections 1621, 1628, 1633, 1635.5, 1638.1, 1724, 1750.1, 1753, 1753.5, 1754.5, and 1755, and repeal Business Protection Code 1632.6 regarding dentistry. Going to ask Brant Nelson, Legislative and Regulatory Specialist, to present this agenda item.
Thank you very much. Mine on? Can you hear me? Should be a green light. There is a green light. You're in business. All right, so my name is Brant Nelson. I'm Legislative Regulatory Specialist for the Dental Board. Several legislative proposals that is November 2024, February 2025, May 2025, and November 2025 meetings resolved very efficiently stemming from the enactment of the board's sunset bill that was SB 1453. We were unable to incorporate the proposals in the committee cleanup bill or standalone bill last year. The board staff have worked with the California Dental Association and Assembly Member Juan Alanis to incorporate the board's legislative proposals into its Assembly bill that was 873. And a summary of the history of AB 873 can be found in the August 14th board material tab link here if anyone's interested in looking at that. On July 14, 2025, Assemblymember Alanis pulled AB 873 from hearing. It's now a 2-year bill pending in the Senate Business and Professions and Economic Development Committee. To advance the legislative proposals approved by the board, staff recommends the board sponsor a standalone board sunset cleanup bill. The legislative proposal attachment 1 here 2 seeks to pursue the board's legislative changes through a consolidated legislative vehicle. What I have for you is on page 61, there's a table and it lists each legislative item and the date the board approved it. These are all of the things that are going into this vehicle to get cleaned up. In addition, board staff also proposed amending BPC section 1750.1 to correct some cross references in the dental assisting and registered dental assisting and extended functions duties that inadvertently were not updated when other amendments were made in 1453. Board staff also proposed additional amendments to BPC section 1753 to clean up the RDAEF examination administration language following amendments to that section in SB 1453. While amendments to BPC section 1754.5 and 1755 were approved by the board as set forth in the above table, these sections were subsequently revised in the effort to incorporate these changes into 873 by the board's executive committee. Accordingly, staff now requests review and approval of additional amendments to clarify and implement BPC section 1754.5 and 1755. The action requested, the council is asked to consider the proposed legislative changes comprising the board's sunset cleanup bill. If the council agrees with the recommendation to amend BPC section 1750.1, 1753, 1754.5, and 1755 as discussed, the council is asked to make one of the following motions. And I am asking as board staff for option one, which is to recommend to the Dental Board of California for submission to the California State Legislature the proposal in attachment 1. And with that, I will turn the microphone over to our executive officer for any further explanatory on this particular legislative item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Just to provide some context to the council, not only on the two proposals in item 10A, but also, or in item 10, but also item 9, the council recommends, the board routinely approves legislative proposals for legislative action. The timing on which it really depends upon the legislative calendar and many other different factors. So the board itself goes through, just as a refresher, the board itself goes through sunset review every 4 years. The board just went through sunset review in 2024. We don't begin that process again until 2028. This particular proposal is a culmination, as you can tell from the grid in the report. There is numerous cleanup language that needs to be added to the Dental Practice Act. All of this language is what we would call either technical and non-substantive or substantive cleanup. And those are things that were a result of our sunset review or something as simple as striking a non-operational reference section or cross-reference sections. Like Mr. Nelson stated, some of these cleanup provisions, if you will, are currently contained in other pieces of legislation. Also, the Senate Business and Professions Committee on an annual basis as the committee authors what we call a committee bill. It's authored by all the members of that Senate Business and Professions Committee. The committee bill is intended to include technical, non-substantive cleanup provisions generally in the Business and Professions Code. So there may be an opportunity in that vehicle this year to include some of these provisions. However, the situation that the board found itself in last year in 2025 was due to the timing of implementation of the board's sunset bill, there was not an opportunity to get much of this technical non-substantive cleanup in the committee bill in 2025. And the chair of the B&P committee, Senate B&P committee at the time, decided not to author a general Business and Professions Code cleanup legislation. So the board was really left with no legislative vehicle to make a lot of these changes. What we've decided to do is present it to you in sort of an omnibus fashion, which includes all of the cleanup language, as Mr. Nelson described, that has been previously approved, and some minor tweaks and changes to additional cleanup language that we will need. As I mentioned in my report, I've been what we call shopping for a legislative author to author this legislation for us this year. And graciously, Assemblymember Joaquin Arambula has offered to author that legislation. So pending approval of the board and the recommendation of this committee and approval of the board, I anticipate having that legislation introduced either Friday or early next week. The other thing that I would like to mention is that the other proposals that are recommended for approval to the board and that are approved by the board, typically, the assumption can be made is those legislative changes will be pursued during our sunset review process. However, nothing precludes the board from moving those approved recommended changes prior to sunset. So I think the strategic thinking of staff and myself is pending approval of these legislative proposals, our goal would be to move them through the legislative process as soon as possible. If we're not able to move them through the legislative process, then they would be subject to our sunset review process in 2028. So for example, if the board does approve agenda item 10A that Mr. Nelson just presented, obviously we're anticipating moving that legislation in this legislative year 2026. Agenda item 9 is a major, as you could tell, a major overhaul and undertaking with a lot of input, not only from staff, but subject matter experts and the Alliance and all sorts of stakeholders. My goal would be, depending upon what happens with our cleanup bill, would be to hopefully pursue that legislation in a standalone board-sponsored vehicle in 2027. So if that happened to be the case and those changes were to take effect then in January 1 of 2028, all of those issues would essentially be off the table for our sunset review. So just trying to make the process a little bit more efficient and reserve sunset review for, as few items as possible. And I've gotten approval, or the blessing, if you will, of such a strategy from key legislative staff and legislators. So I just wanted to provide some just overall context as to why we're bringing these things to the board and to the council now for approval, because inevitably the question that I would ask is, we've approved it, now when can we potentially see the changes occur? And so we'll continue to update the council and the board as those processes move through the legislative process.
Great, thank you. Is there any council member discussion? Ms. Smith?
I have a question on page 79. Number 6, midway down the page, passage of written examination administered by the board, and then we're adding in, or its designee. So does that mean that we are allowing permission to move testing from the board to an outside designee, as we discussed previously, like Danby? Is this, if we put this in, does that mean we are saying they can automatically use an outside agency for testing?
So I'm happy to answer that question. This was actually, we submitted, obviously this proposal has voluminous changes to voluminous sections of the BMP code. This was actually a change that came back to us from legislative staff. And legislative staff felt that the way that current language was written was confusing, right? So if you read the section as it pertains to existing law, it reads, passage of a written examination administered by the board, period. The board shall designate whether the written examination shall be administered by the board. So the section currently read, it's an exam administered by the board if the board designates that they can administer the exam. So the question was, what other options does the board have for administering the exam? And we do have the option to have a designee administer the exam. So what we were working with legislative staff on was to answer their question, trying to clean that provision up. And I see Ms. Valerie at the microphone.
I was just going to add that previously the EF exam had clinical and practical. And so with the elimination of that, the board no longer administers those exams, and the administrator of our exam is the written, obviously, is PSI. And so I think it's just nominating the fact that PSI is our designee to administer the written exam at this time.
Any other discussion? Okay.
I have one thing to ask. Is the term supervising licensed dentist that's to be used throughout the document? Just because I'm looking at page 77 under B, it says the dental assistant may perform the following duties under the direct supervision and pursuant to the order, control, and full professional responsibility of a licensed dentist. Should that be supervising licensed dentist, or because the word supervision is above there?
So as I mentioned in my agenda item 9, that the changes that are being made to that legislative proposal are proposed to be, as Bryce mentioned, part of either the sunset bill or after this bill would go into effect. And this language was previously approved, and so discussions hadn't happened at that time about changing the term. So if this goes into effect in 2027, the change to the term wouldn't go into effect until or unless the legislative proposal we just went over in 9 gets approved and becomes law.
Okay. Any other comment?
Following that page, Smith, down on number 16, it's kind of what we were talking about earlier. So I don't know if the verbiage has changed where we talked about it earlier, if it should also be changed on number 16, where it says allow the flow of nitrous oxide. No, I'm sorry. Strike that. Never mind. We know that that's the chair side one.
Okay.
Sorry. No change there.
Okay. If no other council comments or discussion, then do I have a motion? Okay, I guess, oh, go ahead.
I will motion or that we approve option number 1 of the proposed recommendation.
So go ahead and read that. Move to,
To recommend that the dental board and for submission to the California State Legislature, the legislative proposal in attachment 1 to amend Business and Professions Code sections 1621, 1628, 1633, 1635.5, 1638.1, 1724, 1750.1, 1753, 1753.5, 1754.5, and 1755, and repeal Business and Professions Code Section 1632.6 regarding dentistry.
do I have a second? Dr. Lorenz seconds. Okay, is there any in-person public comment on this?
Good morning. Tuka Zokai from California Dental Association. I wanted to share that AB 873 by Alanis is also, very similar to what is being proposed. So just also being very clear that if this moves forward and with Arambula as the author of this proposal, then it would CEA is also supportive of that change happening and kind of pulling back on 873. So we're going to continue to working with Senate BMP committee, but just wanted to go on record that the CDA is supportive of this proposal as well, and that we understand we don't want it to be duplicative with 873, so that would be pulled back.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Sherry Becker representing the Alliance. On page 85, though we know this language has passed, the Alliance would still like to express their concerns with the 8-hour infection control course being offered in a total virtual setting with the hands-on clinical experience possibly as an option to be eliminated, and the Alliance still supports that hands-on option with the infection control 8-hour course. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, will you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
All right, WebEx, now is the time to raise a hand if you'd like to make a comment on the motion. You can do that by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users need to dial *3 to raise their hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request from online participants. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. Board staff, will you please call the roll on this agenda item?
This is Marella Teran. I will now call the roll. Epps Robbins,
Epps Robbins, aye.
Fowler,
Fowler, aye.
Gerlach,
Gerlach, aye.
Larin,
Lorraine, aye.
Miyazaki,
Miyazaki, aye.
Olagi,
Olagi, aye.
Smith.
Smith, aye.
The motion passed.
Thank you. Going to move on to agenda item 10B. Recommendation on legislative proposal to amend Business and Profession Code Section 1628.7, 1686, 1718.2, and 1718.3 regarding probationary licenses, petitions for reinstatement, termination or modification of penalty, and canceled licenses and permits. I'm going to ask Paige Regali, Chief of Administration and Compliance, to present this agenda item.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Paige Regali. I'm the Chief of Administration and Compliance with the Board. Today, I'm going to be presenting agenda item 10B. This agenda item is a proposal to amend Business and Professions Code Section 1628.7, 1686, 1718.2, and 1718.3. The purpose for this proposal is to clarify the process for reinstatement petitions, which is outlined in Business and Professions Code 1686, and to make additional non-substantive or clarifying and conforming changes in sections 1628.7, 1718.2, and 1718.3, which would be in alignment with the changes we're making in 1686. The changes proposed are outlined on pages 223 through 225 of your meeting materials. And include renumbering sections, clarifying time periods for all petitions, adding new requirements for submission of fingerprints, clarifying the eligibility to submit petitions, and adding a time frame to avoid multiple petitions being submitted back to back. Adding a new subdivision D in 1686 to prohibit reinstatement of scope of practice permits or certificates at the time of license reinstatement. And this change specifically would require that once a parent license is reinstated, more so for the dental licenses, then any additional scope of practice permits like a general anesthesia permit, moderate sedation permit, oral conscious sedation permits would all have to be applied for and issued through regular processes with the board and not be reinstated through the administrative hearing process. In alignment with our past two sunset bills, we're also proposing adding a section to establish a requirement to prove competency for a revoked or surrendered license that has been expired 5 or more years. This will give us the authority to require clinical training and examination as conditions precedent to reinstatement, if not provided as mitigating criteria showing rehabilitation or that they are actually competent and current in these items at the time of submission of the petition. Additionally, we were also aiming to establish the abandonment of a petition for reinstatement that is granted if the petitioner fails to satisfy terms or conditions set in the order. So we did add a clause that would say if the petition or the conditions precedent were complied with within a certain time frame, then that petition for reinstatement, if it was granted, would be considered abandoned and they would have to start the process over. The changes to 1628.7 are non-substantive and outlined on page 225. The proposed changes in 1718.2 are specifically related to fees for past due renewal and delinquency fees, as well as outstanding cost recovery being paid as part of the new probationary terms if the reinstatement is granted. Our final proposed changes in 1718.3 are only to strike the reinstated reference, which will help distinguish the process between canceled licenses versus a petition for reinstatement of revoked or surrendered licenses. Board staff are requesting the council discuss the information presented and take one of the following actions listed on page 226 of your meeting materials. I also wanted to note the language in our board packet was not the correct version, so everyone was provided the correct version at the beginning of the meeting from what I understand. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any council member discussion? Yes, Ms. Squelch.
To clarify, the options are on page 94 of the meeting materials. And we're recommending option 2. Because what's in the meeting materials right now, we need to make a revision to it. I can discuss that real quick. The proposed revision is on page 4 of the handout, or page 98 of the meeting materials. And right now, the third paragraph down would strike the first 2 sentences of that paragraph, but we're also recommending striking that entire paragraph because that whole paragraph is consumed or provided on page 97 of the meeting materials or page 3 of the handout under new subdivision C, paragraphs 1 through 3. We've already incorporated the whole thing under that new subdivision, so we're just recommending to strike the entire paragraph on page 4 of the handout or page 98. So staff is seeking a council member to make one of the motions on page 94, presumably option 2.
Also, sorry, so if we're going to finish striking it, then it's still J in there. So then we would renumber the following section from K to J would be also within those changes.
So this whole thing right here then, right?
Yes. I make a motion, option number 2, move to recommend to the board the legislative proposal in attachment 1 to amend business and professions code sections 1628.7, 1686, 1718.2, and 1718.3 to clarify the probationary license petition for reinstatement, termination, or modification of penalty and canceled license and permit processes and requirements as revised during this meeting. And the revision is on page 98 of the meeting materials to strike the whole third paragraph and to renumber the following section that's numbered K to make that numbered J.
Can you repeat that back? I just want to make sure I get the revision.
It'll be J.
So strike
That's
We don't need to change any of them.
in the meeting materials, it shows up as K. Yeah, on the handout.
strike J.
Need a second?
Materials.
Okay.
Meeting materials. It shows it's K.
Second?
Second?
Epps Robbins, second.
Okay, Miyazaki motioned, Epps Robbins second. Is there any public comment?
This is J.
J. Is there any in-person public comment? Is there any public comment from those participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, would you please facilitate the lines for public comment?
All right, WebEx, we have a motion for 10B as in Bravo. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. Board staff, will you please call the roll for this agenda item?
This is Marilla Turan. I will now call the roll. Epps Robbins,
Epps Robbins, aye.
Fowler,
Fowler, aye.
Gerlach,
Gerlach, aye.
Larin,
Very nice.
Miyazaki,
Miyazaki, aye.
Olagi,
Olagi, aye.
Smith.
Smith, aye.
The motion passed.
Thank you. Now I'd like to move on to agenda item 11, update and discussion on proposed regulations. I'm going to ask Mr. Nelson to present this agenda item.
Hello again. Now my microphone's on and I'm way too loud. Apologies. Brent Nelson, Legislative and Regulatory Specialist. This is just an update. This memo usually addresses rulemaking packages that moved forward in the rulemaking process since the last dental board meeting. Rulemaking packages that require council or board action will be presented in separate agenda items or will be presented at future board meetings. So we had a rulemaking to amend the California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 1005, regarding the minimum standards for infection control. A summary of the proposed changes can be found in the May 14th and 15th board meeting materials. As an update, the proposed text was approved by the board at its May meeting. Board staff submitted the proposed text to the Dental Hygiene Board of California for review and consideration at its meeting on July 19th, 2025. The Dental Hygiene Board of California approved the board's approved text and thereby reached consensus. So the board staff have taken the necessary steps and we have drafted the necessary regulatory documents, the notice, the initial statement of reasons, and we are working with Regulations Council to finalize the documents for departmental review. So this is moving along. Regulations do take a long time. It's not like the In-N-Out Burger drive-through where you can just get your cheeseburger real quick. There's a lot of approvals that have to happen, careful review, and so we're moving through that process. This item is information only and no action is requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
I just would like to make a point of information for the council, and I'll reiterate this for the board. In addition to the legislative proposals that we're talking about today and the ones that'll be coming before the council, inevitably before the board this year, we do have a very august, I would call it, regulatory package agenda this year. Nothing being presented at this meeting, but starting in May, we'll probably have 3 regulatory packages for consideration and approval. And we've developed a calendar, a rulemaking calendar that we've worked on in partnership with the Department of Consumer Affairs, led by Christy Shields, and also agency and the Office of Administrative Law. I just want to make a point that in addition to what I would call our assertive legislative agenda, we also have a very assertive rulemaking agenda. This year alone, on our docket, we have the goal of publishing 5 rulemaking packages, only to be outdone by the Board of Pharmacy. That only leaves us with potentially 10 rulemaking packages in 2027. So I guess I just ask for everybody's grace a little bit and understanding and commitment to working through those packages when you see them. Very voluminous, very complicated, but also mission critical to a lot of our work. So hats off to Brant and the team, and more to come on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any council member discussion? No? Is there any comments, in-person comments from public attendees? Are there any public comments from individuals participating via WebEx? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
All right, WebEx, we're taking public comment for agenda item 11. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment longer to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue?
Yes, please. Well, that concludes the February 5th, 2026 Dental Assistant Council meeting. This meeting is adjourned.